Good afternoon and hello, everyone. Welcome to the National Day of Learning, proudly presented by the Carol Kimmelman Athletic and Academic Campus, powered by Zoom. Now, students, be excited. In this Let's Empower session, we're going to talk with three outstanding first-generation college students to learn more about their experiences and the challenges that they have faced and overcome, most importantly, the insight and wisdom they have prepared to share with all of you. My name is Ramsey Jay Jr., and I am very honored to support the Kimmelman campus and its national initiatives to boost college and career readiness for students just like you all around the country. The Kimmelman campus provides academic and athletic opportunities for tens of thousands of students and families across the United States. It works with school districts to deliver computers, athletic equipment, English and math curriculum, college and career readiness resources, and professional development for STEM, science, technology, engineering, math instructors. These projects are thanks in no small part to the partnership with the U.S. Tennis Association, the U.S. Tennis Association Foundation, Tiger Woods charity, the Tiger Foundation, and the Windward Academy. And thanks especially to the general support of the Kimmelman Family Foundation, Walt Disney Company, ESPN, and Martha and Bruce Karsh. Welcome everyone joining us today from schools, nonprofits, after-school programs from all around the country. On behalf of all of us who support the Kimmelman campus, we are beyond thrilled and excited that you're here. As we start our Let's Empower panel, I first want to thank those in the community who made this possible. Today is the National Day of Learning, and it is powered by Zoom, the platform that we are on. In addition to the partners listed on the screen earlier, supported by the Manitow Fund, the Jack and Gloria Kramer Family Foundation, and Toyota. So of course, we want to give them all a big thank you for being a part of today's conversation. And now, for the moment that we have been waiting for, I know you have, I certainly have, I'm looking forward to a most vibrant conversation. Joining me today are three outstanding scholars. First of all, we have Omar from the University of Pennsylvania, Karimah from Mills College, and Christabel from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, or SLO. A little bit about each of them before I introduce them. Omar is both, listen to this, both a Windward Academy Luminary Award winner and recipient of a Carol Kimmelman Memorial Scholarship. Karimah is an MBA student who just told us she's graduating tomorrow. How about that? And she's going to be graduating from Mills College. And Christabel is an alum of the college track program in East Palo Alto. To read more about these outstanding scholars that you're going to meet, please see the link in the chat. And please, please, please remember to post questions throughout this conversation at any time. We will resource them, and your question can be asked right here, right now. So be sure to post it in the chat. Omar, Karimah, Christabel, please turn on your cameras, your microphones, and join me. Welcome to the conversation at this National Day of Learning. We have a ton of great questions that have been submitted by avid students and other students from throughout the country, and especially those avid students in Southern California. So let's get to it. Beginning first, if I may, with our graduate of tomorrow, Karimah, if you wouldn't mind greeting us. First question for you: what resources, as you look back to your high school experience, what resources do you think prepared you best for your transition and success in college?
Absolutely. It's a great question, Ramsey. Thank you. I would say I utilize many of the resources on campus. In a lot of the university schools, they offer a lot of these. They have bulletin boards, they have student forums, they have websites where pages where students can post a lot of this. So I would say the first place I started were community centers on campus. And I learned a lot of them from, I would say, workshops or professors since I went to a very small college, my professors sort of became my best friends, and they would often recommend a lot of discussions, organizations, groups to get involved in. And when I started joining these groups, I started feeling more confident, especially groups where it was focused on leading young students of color through the academic journey, especially programs looking at how to pay for college, how to possibly even find a job on campus. So in that question, I'm really starting to think about what my connections took me. And your network is your best friend, and your network is your net worth. So I utilized my network to as much as I could as possible. And when I connected with one, I connected with the other, and it was a domino effect. So some of the resources, as I mentioned, were those clubs, organizations, community partners, professors, students. Everyone knows someone. So that's sort of what was my plan.
Wonderful, Karimah. And I'm going to pivot, keep this going high energy to Omar, bring you in here, sir. Question for you. Karimah made a great comment there. I believe if we heard it, and maybe someone even wants to put this in the chat. Karimah, I think you said your network is your net worth. Do we have that right, Karimah?
Correct.
So someone may want to put that in the chat. That's a good learning lesson. Your network is your net worth. Someone in the chat, help us out with that. Omar, to you, as a first generation college student, sometimes we might struggle with that whole network concept. A question for you, Omar, as a first generation college student, what was it like for you to blaze that trail first? And what kind of network opportunity did you have to create, or ultimately did you leverage out of high school to help you make that transition to college as the first?
Thank you for a great question. Being the first in my family to go to college is a challenge that did not begin in college. It began in high school, and it began with the application process, because nobody helped me with that. And I remember my parents just said, take time and do your best. But it's always been an independent route as the first in my family. And I think that independence is something that I was very grateful I developed in high school, because in college, well, you're on your own. And I believe college in particular is the one place in life where it is what you make of it. And so I'll never forget this. I came into college and I had this mindset, which was, I'll be the first in my family to graduate, but I also want to get a very well-paying job and then tell my parents they don't have to work anymore. But upon taking classes that, would set me up to do that, maybe in business or economics, I didn't really enjoy it, but I came across this one class. It was Introduction to Medical Anthropology, which is really concerned about the illness narrative. Anyway, I loved it. I always felt like nobody understood my mother's leukemia. She was diagnosed when I was 6. And having the opportunity to write about that and represent people was something that I was fascinated by. So I go to my professor and I tell her, I don't know what I want to do in life, but I love writing about patients and representing them and telling their stories. And from then on, she connected me to all of the people that I work with today. And if there's anything I want to emphasize, is your network is a direct consequence of your willingness to be curious and your willingness to go after things that you want to find out more about. And so to everybody in this, listening, if you have any questions or concerns or dreams, you should share those things.
Great stuff from Omar. And I'm going to just go ahead and say everybody here should be writing down. I call these chat cheat codes. Your network will be built by your willingness to be curious. Omar is talking to us about being willing to be curious is a great way to build your network, even if you're the first to make it to this next level of academic education. Great stuff from Omar. Christabel, how are you?
I'm good. I'm agreeing with what everyone has to say. I think in addition to that, it's just like keeping an open mind to new experiences. I know as first generation students, we're afraid to leave home because we feel like we need to help out. We can't abandon our families because they need us. But I think having that open mind and being open to experiences is what lets you grow. And it's challenging, but the amount of personal development and growth that you experience is just amazing, and it can take you really far in life.
Christabel, I'm going to stay with you. This came into the chat. So one of our students here, it's an anonymous student, so that's fine, no problem. But I want to pose the question to you, but I like all of you to also talk about it because it seems to be on students' mind. Question first to you, Christabel. Talk about financial aid. we see the price of college and we see big numbers, thousands and thousands of dollars. Christabel, talk about financial aid and how you manage that process from high school to college. And then I think it'd be good for Omar and Karimah, also give us your perspective. A lot of students are interested in the whole, how do we pay for this huge number to get a college education? Christabel, why don't you start?
Yeah, I had the same question a few years ago. Just being very transparent, I grew up with two drug addicted parents and we grew up homeless for a long time. So money was an issue all the time. And so I was like, how am I going to pay for college? Like, my family can't afford to pay rent. But I knew I had to do it. So I used my resources with Avid in my high school. I think Avid is one of your partners, and College Track. And I applied to a bunch of scholarships, a lot of private scholarships, especially in the peninsula of the Bay Area. There were a lot of private scholarships being offered. And what I did in my essays, I was completely vulnerable, transparent, and honest, and saying that, I don't have the money to pay for college, but I have the determination and I have that resiliency to get me through it. And I think those private scholarships has really pushed me through. But I think in Avid, they always tell us, apply to scholarships. And it gets draining when you're applying and you're not getting anything. But honestly, like, it pays off when you do get that one scholarship, that one $4,000 scholarship that's going to pay for your textbooks, or that one $16,000 scholarship that's going to help you. And they keep piling on. So I just say, like, keep applying to private scholarships, all scholarships. Don't give up, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Great words of wisdom. Utilize the resources that are available. You mentioned, and I want you to repeat, you mentioned Avid. You said, what else? College Track, was that another one? And did you say a third? I just want to make sure that we're getting these and we're getting these into the chat. For some students who may not know, we heard Avid, we heard College Track, and then we heard a lot of private scholarships as well. Is that right, Christabel?
Yeah. And you can probably find them like through high schools, like career services, or everyone has like their own department of like college and career services. That's how I found a lot of mine, and just taking advantage of those resources.
And I think you're also saying, even though it may seem like it's a lot of maybe extra work to do those applications, Christabel, are you saying it's worth it?
Yeah, my brother always told me, if you're applying for an hour or two for a $500 scholarship, you're getting paid more than he is. So if you get that $500 scholarship and it took you 2 hours to apply, you got paid $250 an hour. So that's pretty good.
I like
and
that.
that's kind
I
of how
like
I looked
that.
at it. That's how
I've
I
never
looked
quite
at it.
heard it that way. If you're going to apply for an hour for $1,000 scholarship, that's a pretty good return on your time. I think every student listening should probably say that's a good point. Karimah, let's talk about financial aid. A lot of students have that question. I want to give them all a chance to hear your perspectives. Karimah, what do you think about financial aid? How did you approach it? What advice do you have for students on paying for college?
Absolutely. And this is a really great question, because financial aid was almost the reason why I didn't go to college, especially after senior year in high school. I was okay with not going to school or taking time off because I just thought there was no way I could afford it. And so that was the plan. But it's like they say, when you're applying for jobs, just don't apply for every job. Apply for the jobs that you actually want to wake up in the morning and go to and work and do that career. I did the same technique with my scholarship scouting. So at first, when I was applying to a bunch of scholarships, I wasn't getting the answers I wanted, really the emails and calls that I wanted. So I started applying to scholarships that were focused. In undergrad, I studied psychology and business administration. So I said, okay, let me start there. I'll apply to scholarships that pay for students to go study psychology. And I was particularly in the child development department. So I was applying to scholarships that funded you to go become learn about child development, or become a speech therapist, or work with children on the spectrum. So that was my technique. I do want to add, I might have a different experience, because fortunately, the biggest change in my life when senior year in high school, I was extremely fortunate to have received a private scholarship that funded all 4 years. So I do have a very different experience. I did apply to a few scholarships, but I received that last scholarship that funded 4 years. That is a very key point to make. But when I made it to grad school, I did the same thing. I applied to very selective scholarships. If you're in California, if you're in the East Bay, if you're in the Bay Area, there is a particular scholarship that I applied to. It's called the Financial Women of San Francisco. I applied to the East Bay College, and those are very prestigious and heavy scholarships. That one's about a 15 to $25,000 scholarship. So those ones really, really amplified my
And
college year.
Karimah, one more time, so we're putting all these in the chat. Those last two you mentioned, financial, just repeat those slowly because we're putting these all in the chat so the students can be able to resource them. Just repeat those for us.
Yeah, so the East Bay College Fund is a $16,000 scholarship, and they give you $4,000 every year that you're in school. The Financial Women of San Francisco, FWSF, that one is for women wanting to enter the careers in finance or studying finance to one day enter careers in finance. That one is a $15,000 scholarship, and it's giving to you. It doesn't go to school, it goes directly to you in a lump sum. And you could do whatever you want with it essentially, but the goal is to pay for school. And with FWSF, there is an opportunity to get an additional 10,000, but that varies year by year.
Excellent. Great stuff. Thank you for that, Karimah, Christabel. Omar, you're at UPenn. For those that don't know, Omar, you can maybe help our students appreciate Ivy League network of schools, usually quite expensive. Last time I checked, Omar, talk to us about how you were able to successfully not just make it, but also the Ford College Ivy League. Talk to the students about that.
Yeah. What can I say? The biggest money, right? I mean, the cost of attendance was the biggest thing for me. And so if you do a little bit of research, you'll quickly find out there are different types of financial aid. And that's very important to understand because universities that offer a certain type of financial aid might be a better fit for you. So for instance, for me, need-based financial aid was the way to go. Essentially, I wouldn't have to apply to any scholarships or, you know, there are big scholarships like the Gates Scholarship or Jack Kent Cooke. Those are great. They cover your undergrad, but they're very competitive, and it would be very hard to just rely on that. And so schools, typically private, who have need-based financial aid are the choice for you, especially if your family is making less than the cost of the attendance, right? Like for me, it's $80,000 for 1 year, and that's more than we make in a year. And so the good thing is these universities are highly endowed and they are able to cover the cost of attendance for students. And so need-based financial aid, that's the way to go. If you're a low income, middle income individual, one thing I will say is those universities are very competitive. So my guidance counselor, she used to tell me, oh, the college application process is like a triangle. You have your safeties, your targets, and then 1 or 2 reaches. But what you'll find out is in that triangle, the ones that offer need-based financial aid are typically your reaches. And so what I ended up doing was I flipped the triangle and I ended up applying to a bunch of reaches because let's be real, if 10% is the acceptance rate and I apply to 10 of them, I should get into one, right?
Good math, Omar.
Yeah, so that's my advice, right? Need-based financial aid is the way to look into cost of attendance and such. And by the way, I wrote an article on Windward Academy on their blog section on how to finance your college education. So definitely check that out. There's a bunch of scholarships there too.
Omar, you said so much stuff. I'm glad we're recording this, but just to kind of quickly summarize, I love the notion of you flip the triangle and effectively you applied to what may be perceived as stretches. Is that what you're suggesting? And I love your math. 1 out of 10. If you apply at a 10, you should hit 1 or 2. And I think you're also saying, Omar, the financial need-based element of those kind of well-endowed institutions is able to quickly help you make it an affordable option if you are indeed accepted. Is that a good summary?
Perfect. Yeah.
And Omar, and maybe Windward Academy team, maybe we can also find that article you wrote and get a link to that before we leave today, because it sounds like you wrote a summary about some of this as well on the Windward Academy blog. So maybe we'll find that before we get done today. Great question that I want to bring in from Gabriel, and excuse me, I don't know if it's Gabriel or Gabriel, but I'm talking to you, Gabriel Mendoza Jr. This is for you. Gabriel Mendoza Jr., because it's on my question, but I like the way Gabriel framed it himself. So let me go and read it for you. How did the application process differ as you were a high school student and applying to college? Let me also put some other color around this to help the question. The question really is, as you think about the application process, to Gabriel's point, what are some do's and what are some don'ts? One more time from Gabriel, adding some things for the question. what are some do's? What are some don'ts as far as the actual application? Let me go to Karimah first, and then if one of you two also want to chime in, go ahead. But Karimah, why don't you take us on this first one?
Ramsey, can you clarify that question? Is it for when you're applying to college in high school?
Yes. So I'm in high school now. I'm going to apply to college. What are some do's and don'ts in that application for me?
It's a good question. So one of the, looking at it from the way I tackled it, I would say one of the do's is talk about challenges you overcome. That's what colleges want to read, whether it's being a student of color, whether it's being coming from a low income family, it's organizations that changed your life, it's volunteer work that changed your life. Talk about those. Don't leave any of that behind. I know that there is a stigma of not really talking a lot about the heavy stuff that we have come across in our life, but talk about them, because there is you overcome many challenges on a day-to-day basis. Tell that to the person who's going to read your essay. Tell that to the person who's going to open your application. Some of the don'ts is I would say don't shy off of what you share, which is kind of goes back to what I just said, but don't shy off of what you share in terms of personalness, and get as many people as you can to read your application, read your essays. This is something that I did. Instead of just having my college counselor read it, I had my neighbor read it. I had my neighbor's father read it. We all just had circle of friends reading each other's essays and said, well, what can you explain this further? Can you clarify this? Don't include that. Do talk about this some more. So get a lot of people to read your application, read your essay, do your work and research on the college. Is this even somewhere you want to go? How will it reflect you as a student being there? So those are my go-to do's and don'ts.
Beautiful. Christabel, anything you would add, or any other views you have there?
Sure. I saw Omar, your hand is up. I'll be short.
I'm coming, Omar.
I think adding to what Karimah said is having other people read your essays. I think one thing for me was I was really uncomfortable talking about my upbringing because it was really traumatic. But I think through like writing about it, it was also very healing, and reading it to my like closest counselors and advisors, I actually gained relationships with them, and like they were writing my letters of recommendation. So in that way, you're networking with your advisors, and they're the ones writing your recommendations because they know you deeply. And also being comfortable being uncomfortable in situations like this, because you're being really vulnerable. But you're fighting to get into college. And so right now is the time to be vulnerable and be transparent and know that it's okay, because I experienced a lot of uncomfortable feelings, a lot of crying, a lot of stress. But then I started becoming comfortable feeling uncomfortable. And now I use that for everything. So definitely build relationships with your advisors, your professors, your teachers, everyone, because they're there to support you and they want to see you succeed.
Coming to you, Omar. I know you got something for us, but I want to make sure we also capture that, Christabel, because you said something that I don't think we want to let go quietly. You said, get comfortable being uncomfortable, if I can paraphrase it. And I saw both Karimah and Omar's heads nodded when you said that. So let's get that in the chat as another key takeaway. Get comfortable being uncomfortable and sharing your story with vulnerability. And then as you move forward, it becomes your strength and your healing. Great stuff from Christabel. Omar.
Great advice so far. One thing I will add is vulnerability could be double-edged. You don't want to give a very bad situation, very sad story, but then not have any, you want to show resilience. And so if there's any bad story or some trauma or a hardship that you had to go through, well, you also want to, by the end of the essay, by the end of that, page, you want to show that you've grown out of it, and it's like, I come from a community where only 13% of people have a college degree, and I've read some of their essays, and they're all a lot of them sound defeated. And by the end of it, it's like, college is my last gamble, like, please accept me. It's like, no, you're not supposed to approach it like that. You're supposed to show growth and resilience, and this is your next step. And so definitely vulnerability, use it to your advantage, not to your disadvantage. And then the second thing is, you both talked about having a lot of people read your essays. That could also be dangerous because you might lose your voice. And I want to stress that when you're writing essays, that not everyone that reads your essays will share your values and what you deem as important. And your narrative is your own and nobody else's. And so I fell into that trap because I could not make anybody happy. Everybody couldn't be happy with my essay, right? I can make 9 out of 10 people happy, but then that one person makes me want to change something. So stay true to yourself and to your voice. And admission officers will notice it, right? Between your supplements and your personal statement, your voice may differ, but you don't want it to. You want it to be consistent.
Real good stuff from all three of you. Thank you for that. I'm going to go to another one of our students coming in through the chat. Love it. Students, please keep sending those in. We will use them real time. Manuel Delgado. Manuel, this is for you. He asked the question. I'm going to pivot it, but I want to use him and then we'll go open with it. What would be the first step as you get to college and you think about a career and you want to learn more about that? What kind of resources are available to help me once I get to college and I think I want to be, in this case, Manuel says neurosurgeon, fabulous dream and aspiration. I'm on this big campus now for the first time. Like, I know I got to take biology, but what else does a campus provide to help me figure out, is that the right career for me? So we're going to make it more broad than neurosurgeon. We're rooting for you, Manuel, but let's talk more broadly. I have a career dream. I'm on campus, first time. How do I make the most of the college campus to help me figure out what career may be the right one for me? And I'll let any one of you take that one. Who wants to take that?
Here, I could take it. And I'll keep it brief. So the thing about Penn, it's a research university. And so there's a plethora of opportunities to get hands-on experience. And if you end up at a university that has plenty of research, plenty of job openings, in my personal opinion, experience is the best indicator of what, it helps you so much. It's different to study theory and do things in the classroom versus application in the real world. Now, I thought I would really enjoy, I really like biology, for instance. In my freshman year, I picked up a job at a lab. It was a wet lab, and it was so lonely. I didn't talk to anybody. I was usually like pipetting and stuff. And I realized I didn't want to work in a lab. And so I would have never found that out in the classroom, but because I went out of my way to find a job opportunity. And so for me, I found that through the Center for Undergraduate Research and Fellowships. We call that CURF. And so every university should have something along those lines. Career services, I know, exists in most universities. And the advisors there are very helpful.
Excellent. Christabel or Karimah, anything you would add there?
Yeah, I think in addition to like the big career services and there's also like major clubs. So like for neuroscience, if we're sticking to that theme, there could be like a neuroscience club and there'll be students just like you or even like upperclassmen who've already taken the classes, probably have internship experience, who are really, they can give really good advice and like just based off of their experience. And it's also a great way to network. So I would highly recommend getting involved in a major club or organization related to your major. If you're really interested in a class or you really like a professor, ask them if you can be a research assistant, ask them if you can help them in any way. And just kind of get involved, especially as a first year. Internships aren't going to come as easily, but getting your foot in the door by networking with upperclassmen and asking them for advice on what they did, what internships they did, maybe they can refer you, and really like being close with your professors and asking them if you can assist them, and research opportunities can come that way, especially for neuroscience. But yeah, getting involved in a major club and networking with your professors.
Great stuff. Getting involved with the clubs, networking with professors, understanding research institutions are built for this. They're the help laboratories. So you got to be a little bit inquisitive, or back to Omar's earlier point, being curious. Karimah, anything you would add to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say Christabel said it. Internships are the most ideal and most experience that you can get into. And I'm going to take it back to the network is your net worth. I, in undergrad, did not apply to a single job. All of my jobs came from my connections through my network. So I would reach out to them and say, hey, professor, doctor, I'm interested in this. Do you know anyone? And we had professors who had connections in Facebook, Google, YouTube. So we would just go to them and they would say, absolutely, I have someone that you need to connect with. Connected with them, and then we got the internship, we got the job. They're there for a reason. They're not just there to teach you in the academic setting. They know a lot of people. They have more experience. They've done this already. So go to them, go to the career services, go back to your network. In undergrad alone, I was my fellowships, my internships, my jobs all came from connections. And that's really the way that a lot of folks are doing it now.
Really good point. And I saw Christabel and Omar both nodding on this one. So I want to make sure we get this to the students. But Karimah, you're saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karimah, you're saying that professors are not there to just teach necessarily. They also have relationships with businesses and companies and governments, nonprofits. And when you go to know not just what they teach, but who they know, they also have relationships to things you want to do for a career. So getting to know your professors, great way to build your network and find those internships and jobs. Really good stuff. I want to bring in our friend Amy Godinez, a student. Amy Godinez has written in a couple of questions that I'll put together in one, but it's showing up quite a bit. So Amy Godinez and others, here's the question. Back to first generation, what do you wish you would have known before you set foot on campus that you found out after? One more time. What is one thing that you think about, wow, I wish I would have known this before, but now I'm here and I'll make the most of it? What comes to mind as you think about your transition and you look back on it? And the last piece, and you guys can kind of take it where you want to, but what advice would you give the high school version of yourself, knowing what you know now? So what was it that kind of surprised you? And what would you say now for someone who's there, advice to be prepared for that thing? What comes to mind when we ask that question? I'll go to Omar first. Let Christabel and Karimah think about it for a minute. Omar, what do you think about here?
That's a tough question, but right away I'm thinking, do not be a grade chaser. In high school, I was a grade chaser. That meant I just wanted the A and I didn't really care about anything else. I had no other purpose besides looking good on my transcript. And in college, I realized such a shallow perspective on education is not taking me anywhere. And this is so funny, right? Because looking back, classes that I cared about, well, in college you do get flexibility, right? You get to pick your classes. But in college, you also have to fulfill general education requirements. So you get to pick 2 out of 3 classes. But for the 1 out of 3 classes, you do have some flexibility and they are sometimes interesting. But more importantly, if you just somehow just find a way to relate it to your goals in life and just see purpose and value in it, then that opens up everything, right? It opens up networks, because once you're interested, you're more likely to have conversations with your professor, with your teaching assistants, and with friends. And I think I came in as a freshman, just being like, I need to get A's, I need to get A's. And it's so funny, my freshman year, I did the worst. And and so afterwards, I kind of took it easy and just really enjoyed education, because the truth is, being in school is a privilege, and taking time to learn is a privilege. And in the future, I'm going to be so caught up with working, and it's just like remembering that in the bigger picture really helps me, keep going.
Christabel, let's go to you here.
I actually wanted to add to Omar's point about not chasing grades. This is a little different, but very similar. I was always like top of my class, 4.0 student, and I went to college and I had a reality check. But everyone there was smart. And I think I learned throughout my years to prioritize balance versus that, we always say academics first, academics over everything. And I completely agree that academics should be a priority, but I also believe in balance. And I believe in self-care and personal development, your social life, your physical health. I had to learn how to, time management and, prioritizing my relationships with people, because the people you meet in college are probably the people you're going to have as friends for the rest of your life. And so just knowing that, working for that A should definitely be the goal, but don't be so hard on yourself, because you've worked so hard to get to where you are today that you are so worth, having a social life, having a balance. And I think that would be my main point. I kind of sidetracked on my last point, so I'll let Karimah talk.
You did. You're doing great. Karimah?
No, that was great, Christabel. I will also, adding to Omar's point, I graduated and I get to school and I did really bad in my first year, my first semester. And I go to my professor and say, why did I do bad? And she goes, well, we accept the top students. They come here and like Christabel said, they get a reality check. And then you start to doubt yourself and say, well, why am I here? I'm in a setting where everyone around me is smarter than me. That's not the case. So that's my first point. The second point I would say is please knock out your general eds, at least in the first 2 years if you can, because they will come back and bite you. And you need to take that one annoying class in your last year and you're up 18, 19, 20 credits in your final semester of undergrad or graduate, depending on whatever it is. And I did have another point and I am blanking on it, but I will also say the biggest thing that I would say, I wish I could tell myself 6 years ago when I started is don't be intimidated by the material that you learn. My first semester, I failed an exam that I sort of failed an exam that I should have done really well. And I came home and I was weeping. When I went back home to my parents and I was weeping. And my dad said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, I don't care that you failed the exam. Do you understand the material? And I said, yeah, of course, I absolutely understand it. That's all I need. Because the reality of it is these exams are written by professors who have an answer in mind in their perspective. So it goes back to what Omar was saying about your essay, have people read it, but not too many people to lose your voice. Exams are written because they have the answer in their head, but you might have it a different way or understand it a different way. The material, if you understand the material, you are more than enough. And that's the way I see it. You can deliver your absolute best. And I live by this quote, whatever happens is not what happens. I ran into a lady and I told her, whatever happens, happens. And she said, no. Whatever happens, you make happen. So I live by that. So whatever I produce in the exam and my essays and my grades, I made that happen. And that's the work that I put in.
Karimah, you're saying so much good stuff. I don't want that quote to go casually. Repeat it again slowly so we make sure we get that in the chat about happens. So one more time.
Absolutely. So it's, I write it in my journal. It is whatever happens, I make happen.
Whatever happens, I make happen. That someone likes that. Amy Godinez, the student that asked the question, is all excited. So I'm giving virtual high five. There we go. Let's come back here though, because students are also asking, we've talked a lot about college, but they want more granularity. Literally, they want us to describe a day in the life. What is it like? What time do you get up? Do you eat breakfast? Do you cook? Do you go to class all day? Do you go to class part days? How many hours of free time do you have? When do you have fun? What time do you go to bed? I mean, they really want to know what's it like. So give us a perspective. And let me start with Karimah, and then we'll bounce around. But a day in the life, what is it like?
Absolutely. So I'll give the perspective of my undergraduate experience. And I, for the first 2 years, lived on campus, but I am from the Bay Area. So I decided to move out and live in an apartment I rented. But when I became a commuter student, a day in the life really looked like getting up 2-3 hours, of course, early in the morning, 2-3 hours before my class started. I did cook a lot in undergrad, which is probably not the experience of many undergrads because we tend to order a lot, at least in the first 2 years. So went to classes. Yes, you do have the flexibility of picking your schedule and picking your time, but your time is extremely valuable. So use it as much as you can and use it effectively and efficiently, because you have 2 hours. You're like, yeah, I have 2 hours of free time. No, that's not free time. Maybe catch up on some readings, maybe fix out your calendar, maybe put out some flashcards for an exam you might be studying. So utilize your time because it is extremely valuable. And I will say, because your time is valuable, one thing I started doing in my senior year is I refused to do any work after 10 p.m. because the first 3 years of undergrad, my friends and I literally had a system where one of us would sleep and one of us would do work until about 1:30 a.m., 2 a.m., text or call the other one to wake them up so we could take our nap just for the other person to do some work as well. Don't do that. So once I reached my senior year, I refused to do any work after 10 p.m. I want to be in bed by 10 p.m. So that's one of the things I did. If I can crunch all of that in my day, and it's tiring and it's exhaustive, but after 10 p.m., I don't want to think about psychology or biology or business or accounting or numbers. I want to think about sleep because I need that sleep and I need that rest to excel and do my best. So that's one thing. So that I would say that's my biggest thing.
Very good. Very good. Christabel, day in the life, Cal Poly San Luis. Is it all fun? Is it all work? Is it a combination? How we managing a campus day there?
I think Cal Poly is a really good example because our motto is learn by doing. And I mean, if you know Cal Poly is a really well recognized school for engineering and architecture. So I say we work really hard, but we also prioritize, we live by the beach, we have beautiful hikes. So my day in my life would look like waking up at 7 a.m. pre-COVID. I would wake up at 7 a.m. with my roommate and we would go to our classes together, probably take classes with my friends, and then a break in between I would fit in the gym for 2 hours, and then I'd run to class for or lab for 4 hours, and then it's already evening, so studying, of course, studying until you can't study anymore, probably grab dinner with your friends, kind of like Karimah said, always eating takeout, um, or on campus food, gotta love that sometimes. And yeah, farmers markets or going to the beach on the weekends, hiking on the weekends, and then nightlife, but just balancing your day and having a strict schedule. That's pretty much it. Class, gym, work. Oh, if you have a job, fit that in there, and studying.
Got it. Omar, day on the life, UPenn campus. What's it like? Take us inside.
Yeah. Well, here we go. So this was actually very recent. On Mondays, this is like the perfect day to explain this. I had class at 12, which is like late. And so that made my mornings open. So in the morning, I would go to volunteer at a local health center, and then I would run back and make it to my room just to get on Zoom, get on my class. But if it was a regular semester, I'd go to the classroom and then I'd go to class. I like to schedule my academic semester to have classes back to back, just so I'm efficiently using my time to school, right? I remember my freshman year, I was like more concerned about getting into the classes rather than the time of it. And so I had these awkward 1 to 2 hour breaks between every class, very, very awkward. And it sets you up to fall into the trap of doing homework for the class within those 2 hours. And so just having them back to back actually helps you manage your time. And then so class was over, have lunch. I also cooked a lot during undergrad. I still do, which is really good because you don't know, dining halls, they oil up stuff too much. It's a little unhealthy and you save money. And then, yeah, maybe you go to the gym, go to a couple meetings. And then, yeah, I think at night, I like to unwind, YouTube, Netflix, maybe go to a party or two, but with COVID, I haven't. So mostly Netflix. And then, yeah, that's the day in life.
Excellent. We're having such a good time. We're almost going to run out of time, but we're going to pack in a couple more things here. So let's finish strong here. This one came in a couple of different ways and I want to give the students our names because names matter. Jade, Jeremy, Jade Lopez, and Jeremy Breden. Excuse me if I mispronounce the name, but I love it because anytime you see young people asking about this, we need to answer it. They want to know specific study habits. What's the best way to study effectively? And if we have students asking, hey, how do I study better? We should give them some advice on that. Advice, how do we study effectively? Study tips. What do you guys think about that? Anyone can take that one, but let's talk to them about how they can maximize the studying.
Here, I can begin. This is something I started in college, so not in high school. And it's called the Pomodoro Technique. And what it is you pretty much get into a state of flow where you are only focused on one task. The task is not too challenging, but it's also not too easy. And so you've done your homework, you understand how to solve these problems or write the essay, and you work for 25 minutes straight, and then you stop for 5 minutes. And then that's one Pomodoro. And so you should approach tasks by saying, okay, I'm going to get this done in 3 Pomodoros. And that's it. And the other thing is Pomodoros are very intense. And so you don't want to overdo it because then you'll burn out. And so you want to go into this saying, I'll do 2 Pomodoros to finish one problem set, and then so on and so forth. Very efficient.
Pomodoro, one approach to that. Karimah, Christabel, study techniques, cheat codes. What's the way to help these students make good on the study time they have?
I've also used that technique and I use it with my friends. One addition that we have to it is throwing our phones in the middle of the table, and whoever picks it up, there's like they have to buy everyone dinner or something that nobody wants to do, so nobody will pick up their phone. And it works really well because you don't want to do it. And also I recommend finding study spaces that work best for you. Everyone studies differently. And in college, I feel like I had to reteach myself how to study, because in high school it's a lot of memorization and knowing the equations, but in college you need to genuinely understand the material, so you have to reteach yourself how to study, and everyone has different methods. But for me, what worked was the fifth floor of the library, which is the quietest space. When I really needed to focus, I knew that when I went there, my mentality was, you're going to be here for 2 hours and you're going to get all this work done this 2 hours. But I knew if I wanted to be in somewhere more public, then I knew I was going to do less tedious work. And just knowing, aligning your environment and your setting to what you have to study. So if it's more rigorous and you have a midterm coming up or an exam, going to a place where your mental state can be in that focus zone will really like be a really good start. And study tips, it really depends on the person. It could be Quizlet, flashcards, saying it out loud, writing it on a whiteboard. I've done all of them, teaching myself how to study.
There you go. There you go. Let's go to Karimah.
Absolutely. Both Omar and Christabel said some amazing points. I also use the Pomodoro effect, the Pomodoro studying technique, and that has extremely helped me, especially in times of finals, exams, midterms. I will say putting the phones away is definitely important. Social media is distracting, so turn it completely off, put it in the other room, give it to someone who's about to go out and run some errands, so that way you absolutely cannot get your phone. Do those things, take those extreme measures because they matter. But they can take up a lot of time, and time flies when you're on those things. I will also say one of the things I do is when I'm studying for an exam in particular, or just trying to catch up on some readings, I'll get a flashcard, just a normal 5x7, and I'll put the most important information I need from that chapter or that exam. Because everything else, while it is important, I need to know this one more. And what I'll do is I'll get up in my office and I'll act like I'm teaching students. So I was an SAT instructor for quite a while. So I'll get up and act like I'm talking to my students, and I'll say, and well, in accounting, you look at your cost of goods, and I'll say all these good stuff that I need to retain. But because I'm saying it out loud to my fake audience, it helps me act like I'm in front of the room teaching them, but I'm actually really learning. And that lawn that you see behind me as the background, that is one of my favorite places to study. We put up hammocks, tents, just about everything, and we'd study all on the lawn on a beautiful sunny day. Finding your space is also important. Change your location. Stick to the library, great, but go to other buildings. We had secret rooms all over my campus. So during the final season midterm, you'd find these students in secret rooms. And you'd have to pivot to the next one or find the next one. We have forests. Go to multiple cafes. Don't just stick to one. You want new environments just so you can constantly change that experience and really retain as much information as you can within the environment that you're in. So those are some of the things that I do.
Beautiful, beautiful. We have exactly 7 minutes here. We're going to use them all. Students, stay with us. We've got a very special conclusion. That's all I can tell you. You want to stick around if you can. 7 minutes, we have a special conclusion. But I want to go around the horn here to each of you, Omar, Christabel, Karimah, in that order, if you wouldn't mind. And I kind of want to take myself out of the equation, if you will, and really get you to literally assume the posture that you have 300 high school students listening to you as if you are the only person that they will ever hear from, the last word of encouragement before they go on their journey. What am I saying? I believe that there is a student listening right now who isn't going to hear someone tell them this word of wisdom, this word of encouragement, but they will hear it today because they have you as their spokesperson. So maybe there's not someone at home, maybe there's not that guidance counselor at school, maybe there's not that teacher at campus, but today they have 3 people, each who are able to impart a word of wisdom in them. I want to be silent. Omar, Christabel, Karimah, in that order, take 30 seconds, maybe 45, and just speak encouragement, wisdom, belief, whatever you want to call it, speaking to a student who may not hear it unless they hear it from you. Omar, you go first, please.
I think this is your sign to be ambitious and shoot high and not shoot too low and then hit the target. I think that's advice that everybody in my high school should have heard, but because they don't know not a lot of them were the first in their family to go to college, it just didn't seem like an option that was a good fit for them. And then the local community college was just good enough. But there have been so many bright students in my high school that could have gone across the country. They could have gone to Stanford or Harvard or whatever, and they just shot too low. They weren't ambitious. And if you're looking for that sign, this is your sign. Be ambitious, shoot high, And if you don't, well, now you know.
Christabel, same invitation, please.
I think mine will just be letting you know that you have worked so hard to get to this point, and that already in itself is an accomplishment. And college, if I'm being real with you, you're going to be challenged beyond your limits, but you'll grow from them. And you've been challenged all your life to get here. Something my psychology professor told us my first year is that us students of color, first generation, low income, marginalized groups, we have been here, we got to college on the dirt road while all these other students got here on the highway. So who really worked harder? And so never forget that when you're doubting yourself, when you don't think that you're smart enough, you have worked so much harder than everyone else around you just to sit where they are. So just remember that and don't be so hard on yourself. College should be fun. College should be about making memories and getting your education. So just make sure to create balance. But yeah.
Karimah, same invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. Have fun while you're in your college. Don't get too worked up in the notebooks and studying and just about everything else that comes with being in an academic setting. And I will say, if you're on this call right now, then you're already taking the first step. This is what I wish I would have done when I was thinking about colleges. So you're already there. And secondly, I want to say, you are breaking through one of the strongest barriers. Getting into college, that is something applying, writing that essay, completing, submitting the application, even if it's submitting the application, you are breaking through barriers, things that my ancestors never did. I'm a first gen. When you break through that ceiling, it's literally like coming up for a breath of fresh air. And you will feel this 4 years from now when you graduate. You'll remember this call, you'll remember this conversation, and you're gonna feel weight lifted because then your children and your children's children, one, they don't get to say they're first gen anymore, but you'll also be the most initial point of support for them, because that's what you're breaking, and that's who you are. So, and always remember that what you have right now is extremely powerful. Please use it. Education is a tool. Please go out, and we're the next folks, y'all. So we can change the world. So you never know who you're talking to. So just go out there. Just do it.
Well, look, fantastic. Thank you, Omar, Christabel, Karimah. We could talk another hour. The students have stayed on here. We actually went over by a couple of minutes, but I can see the chat numbers and the participants. They're still here. So thank you, students, for holding on. And hold on for just 4 more minutes. We're going to let you go right at the half-hour mark. But before we do that, I want to say to Karimah, Omar, and Christabel, and Karimah, Omar, Christabel, I can't believe I get to do this, but I'm going to do this. A small token of gratitude from the Kimmelman campus team. I'm honored to have the privilege of sharing a gift from you. I had nothing to do with it, but I do get to announce it. Are you familiar with the book, if I may introduce it, called Legacy and the Queen? One more time, Legacy and the Queen. For those that don't know, Legacy and the Queen is a book authored by the NBA all-time great Kobe Bryant. And it is a book that he wrote, and it is entitled Legacy and the Queen. What is so exciting about this is the United States Tennis Association has been kind enough to gift each of you with a copy of Legacy and the Queen, Kobe Bryant's book. It gets better. Stay with me, students and expert panelists. It's the #1 New York Times bestseller of the basketball legend and Academy Award winning storyteller Kobe Bryant, about finding your inner magic against all odds, which you all have done. However, it gets even better. I just was told, I just got this right now, that you will each be receiving a copy of the book, and each of your copies of the book have been autographed by Kobe Bryant himself. He autographed a number of these books before his passing, and you three, by way of the United States Tennis Association, will each be receiving a signed Kobe Bryant copy of that book, Legacy and the Queen. What a way for us to say thank you for the wisdom that you have imparted in all of these students. that will be coming your way. Lastly, let me also introduce Denise Jover from the Tiger Foundation. She's going to share some really special opportunities for all of our students this summer to build on the great wisdom that you've shared with us. Denise, would you please share some exciting opportunities that students may be able to take advantage this summer? Please, Denise.
Absolutely. And wow, how do I get to follow up all of this greatness? Like, no pressure whatsoever. Omar, Christabel, Karimah, congratulations on literally how you define success, because success looks so different for everyone, but kudos to everyone. Love to do some snaps, but just not to elongate this, more so for the folks. I am actually Denise Hoved. I am Senior Program Managers with the TGR Foundation. And I am so privileged here to really talk about resources that can help students actually on this call, that you might want to participate in. So if you're not familiar with TGR Foundation, a Tiger Woods charity, we actually provide resources and support to help youth connect their passions to their purpose. And we do a lot of programming around STEM enrichment, as well as college access. So you all heard Christabel, Karimah, and Omar really talk about ways to support that type of programming. And one of those ways is we're actually going to be having virtual summer programs on various courses for middle through high school students. And if you're probably wondering, like, I need visuals, I need links, I know that an email will be sent to all registrants with this information, so you can find out how you can register for these courses. But just to give you some examples, we have courses on health and fitness, zoology, photography, graphic design. And these are just ways for you to really explore, like, what is it that I may want to do once I get to the college level? And I think it's very important for exploration to happen at the middle and high school level right now. Also, for students, if you're looking to really amp up your college applications, we're also having a College Bound Academy. We're actually going to have 3 different weeks of sets of cohorts of students throughout July and August. And for this particular program, it'll be a 1-week immersive program where we'll talk about, applying for the Common Application, building a college list, writing a personal statement. We're also going to have guest speakers. There will be layers of mentorship, team and community building. And I know that's something that a lot of our students are craving, especially in a digital world right now. Again, all of this information will be shared in an email with you all. I know you're probably digesting all of the wonderful information that was just shared. And that's just a little bit about this. College Bound Academy is a program for incoming or rising high school seniors for fall of 2021. So just so you have that in mind. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. You are more than welcome to follow us on social media for any other updates. You can follow us on Instagram or Twitter at TGRFound, F-O-U-N-D. Or you can also check us out on our YouTube channel at TGR Foundation as well. So thank you all, and I'll leave it at that.
Great. Thank you so much, Denise, for sharing those wonderful opportunities. And hey, students, let's give, I know you can't see them, but virtually put a 1 in the chat. You can just put a 1. Tell us that you love Christabel, you love Karimah, you love Omar. I think they've all put their LinkedIn in the chat. I think they're kind of saying if you want to connect with them, I see that going on in the chat. So Omar, Karimah, Christabel, thank you for making yourselves available. I saw that they put that in there. So follow up with them and let them be part of your network, which is your net worth. Be curious. And as Christabel also told us, be comfortable being uncomfortable. Here's a great way to start. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you for making this National Day of Learning such a special opportunity. I think, as Karimah said, the future is now. The future is bright. Have a great rest of your Friday. Good luck.